Hey there, it's Lisa Haggis bringing you part 2 in my brand design interview series. This time we talk specifically about web design with Christine Thatcher of Christine Marie Studio. Listen on for great tips on getting the best design outcome regardless of your budget. So what 3 words would you use to describe your brand?
My brand? I think that my brand is, this will sound kind of different, but it's a little bit elusive. It's a little bit, it's not for everyone in the sense that I kind of play up on my mystique, which I took the Fascinate test, which I highly recommend. And I actually ask my clients to take it too. It's how I draw people in with curiosity. So I definitely would say that, just approachable, but at the same time, kind of elusive. I don't reveal everything all at once. I'm not like really out there. Another way I would describe myself is I'm very thoughtful and very, I consider myself to have a very intelligent approach to this whole process. And, I think the third word that I would use, there's a sense of elegance, a sense of, I appreciate, beautiful things. I do have a little bit of my toe in this like shabby chic world. I love vintage things. And so I try to put a little bit of an element of that in there that kind of keeps me authentic and real.
What is the secret to being more memorable as a brand?
Consistency, I think. I don't think that you necessarily have to be, wham, pow, blam. I think that a lot of times we see other people doing that and we feel like we have to force ourselves to do that in order to be memorable. And what happens is that it's not authentic to ourselves, and then it's very hard to maintain. And so I think that, finding something that feels very authentic and then sticking with it and being very consistent in the way that you present yourself everywhere. So, whether it's video or Facebook or email or whatever, that you're conveying that very consistent message. And I think the other piece of that is, when you look at how I want to present myself, how do I want people to feel when they encounter my brand? And then everything you do, you want it to kind of fit within that. It's like, am I making this person feel that way with this element or whatever I'm doing? And,
right.
and if I'm varying too far off, is there a specific reason, or, maybe I need to revisit what I'm doing? So I think that consistency in appearance, but also the consistency in the experience.
Mm-hmm. Clarity comes over time. Like, absolutely, right? You have to actually wear your business for a while in order to know whether it fits. But what do you think is something that really helps people get that clarity up front as much as they possibly can?
I think you have to really sit with yourself and examine how you like to work and who you like to work with, what you get excited about, and, kind of not be afraid to go with those initial gut instincts.
Yeah, I think that that's a really big one, because I think a lot of people, your gut instinct feels too natural and you almost look past it for the next thing.
Yeah, it has to be harder if I'm going to be an entrepreneur,
Yeah, exactly.
And I think you have to too avoid I see sometimes it's like, well, you can find that information out on the internet, and it's like, well, no, people really do want to be told what to do, and they want to trust somebody and they want somebody to guide them. And so, just because it's already been done or that it's available, on the internet, there goes my doorbell, that it's available on the internet doesn't necessarily mean that, that you shouldn't do it, or you shouldn't attempt it, or you shouldn't try it, because everything's been done before.
Yeah. If I'm looking to build a website and I can only put money into one place, where do you think I should put it?
I think it depends on where, first of all, what you're trying to communicate. Are you selling a product or a service? If you're selling, if you're a coach and you're selling kind of an intangible service, it might be that you invest in video so that you come across, very professional, but at the same time, there's a lot of not kind of going deep enough, in the service business. You kind of have to connect with people, and you have to give them something, to kind of root for you about. But maybe investing in video in that scenario, if you're selling high-end jewelry, maybe you invest in photography, so that you're kind of you're going where it's going to have the most impact. For me, I struggle with writing, so content strategist is probably, a good investment for me.
But you're also a designer. So,
yes, right.
I think that the other part of the equation is really look at your own talents and be be so honest with yourself about them.
Yes.
Have you worked with clients who have come from a content strategist before?
I have. Most of my clients actually haven't done that process. They're coming straight, and I'm actually seeing such a need for it that I'm like investigating partnering with one. Mm-hmm. But I would like to see my clients kind of think through and have see okay, help them get their not just with their visuals, but get their customers in a position to buy using their strategically using content. And it doesn't have to be salesy. I think it's just as critical as the design.
Mm-hmm. And it's because I think what people need to realize is the design is still make or break. Like a bad design will ruin you. Yes. But a good design isn't a guaranteed win.
Exactly. If there's nothing to sustain it. I'm beginning to see the need to have my clients have their content up front, and say, okay, because how are we going to strategically incorporate all this, visually if I don't see everything that you want to say? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's just something I've recently incorporated into my process. Is that has to be done, 90% done up front.
When you see their content, how does it help you deliver a better result when you have their content in advance?
Well, it helps me understand, number one, what they're trying to say, and then, just also help them visually prioritize how that content is delivered and how it's digested by the user.
Yeah. So talk a little more about visual prioritization, because I have a feeling many, many people will go through the entire web process and never even learn that concept. Mm-hmm. I think that only a select group of designers even will probably bring it up as a conversation with their client.
It's a piece that's really important to me. And for me, it's about, it's funny. I had a freebie of maybe it was 6 months ago or whatever, where I would talk to people, give them 15 minutes, and we would talk about their site. And one of the questions on there was, what do you want your user to do first when they come to your site? And I got so many responses of, oh my gosh, I'd never thought of that, And I think that and I do this as well. We're so busy, okay, I got to look good. I got to present myself. I got to, my business needs to look good. And that we're not thinking of it from the standpoint of what's being received. Mm-hmm. And so I think that it's really important to be really specific, and really that initial message needs to be really simple and really clear, because we're bombarded with 5,000 messages a day. And so if your message is not clear, they'll leave. And it doesn't matter how pretty your website is. And so I think that for me, it's I try to focus on what's the one thing, what do you use the one thing on each page? It's not just your homepage that you want somebody to come, to take away. And what do you want them to understand? What do you want them to do? And then, we look at that, obviously we look at, the goal of the site. Are you, wanting to build your list or whatever? But you just definitely have to prioritize. And it's really important, even on your about page, I don't really care if you have who I am highlighted as a subheading. That's also a fallback to the Word document, days or whatever. Yeah. That doesn't tell me anything. Highlight something that will draw me in. And I think that that's, something that's missed a lot in subsequent pages.
No, absolutely. Sometimes I'll just browse people's websites and I'll start playing around with it in my own head. This is what I would change.
Exactly.
But most of the time, it's that exact thing. It's that it's a page where everything has been given equal priority. And as a result, you look at the page and your reaction is, this is a lot of work.
Yes.
You know?
And you leave. And I cannot get that through people's head enough. People will leave.
What are some of the things that clients ask you to do, like maybe on a regular basis, that you advise them against? So common mistakes that you save them from.
Common assumptions. I'll start there. Mm-hmm. Common assumption is that I am a business strategist, that I'm going to be able to tell them, that their website is going to be like the end all for their business. What it really is the beginning. It's the foundation. It's the starting point. And it's a great leaping off point, to come and have a website done professionally. But from that point forward, you're going to have to work really hard as far as, marketing and stuff. So I think that it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to hire this person and she's just going to fix it all for me. I think that's a common, that is an assumption I have seen. One thing I like to steer people from is, and I see it a lot on the internet, and it's not so much with my clients, but it's this kind of this personality branding thing that's going on. Okay. I totally agree with branding around your name, branding around your personality. My business is my name, but I see a lot of me, like self-promotion rather than giving the benefit. It's like, I find I steer my clients frequently into like, what is the benefit of your beautiful face up there? What does that mean to me? What is the benefit for me? What is the, what am I going to get out of working with you? Or what am I going to feel after putting on a piece of your jewelry or, whatever product or service you sell? So I find that that's something that hasn't been thought through enough. You have to really think through that kind of results. What's the result first? And then does my photo play into that result? Is, getting to know me as a coach and that's important. So maybe, your photo being on your website is the strategy that you want to use, but you definitely want to also incorporate, a message and a lifestyle or whatever the result is, very, very clearly. Another thing is having content just to have it. Like the more content you have, the more professional you'll be, or the more respected you'll be, or the more authoritative you look. And really, that's one thing. And I think that that's kind of a carryover from people who've been in business a while. And that's what we used to do. It's like, it's like put everything up there. And now, we're in a world where people have like, 9-second attention span. And so we have to really look at like, what is really key for them to understand. And, not just putting content up for content's sake. What is the strategy behind this? And again, that's there are people who specialize in that.
Yeah. Well, it's harder to be concise and, and still convey the entire message than to ramble on. And
I think that's that is another thing that I have, said, hey, I'm not probably the one to help you with this, but this content feels really, really long. It's like time to kind of, cut it to it like a third.
Right. Yeah. Well, and like one of the things, like when you're talking about, like you've brought up Fascinate a couple times, like really it's just brand character is what that's about. It's like what is the portrayal of your personality as a brand. And once you know those things, you can use them to inform all kinds of decisions, including how much content you should have.
Exactly.
Like somebody who really does, love to pour out their soul a little bit, and they're just a little bit more of a, they're very, very verbal.
Exactly.
It's okay to show that.
Yes.
Because it's the fit, it's the consistency.
Exactly. Again. And it's true to them. So it's like, how are they already perceived? How are they, how do they, and then it's like, how do you amplify that? So that might be a way that you amplify that in a personality like that. Somebody who's very like, warm and expressive and, and I have worked for clients like that. And they're very, they're very different from me. And that's what makes it exciting. But yeah, it's like amplifying where where your strengths and where you're already perceived is going to be what helps you kind of maintain that if you try to go in a direction that I tried that initially, like that, you're a superstar, kind of thing. And it just is not my personality. It was just like work. And so when I look at like, okay, I'm very reserved. I'm very, I'm very, kind of calm and quiet, and I listen and stuff. So it's, that was very intentional in my designs.
So how does the translation happen when somebody does have a clear idea of how they want to be perceived? How do you take that and now turn it into something visual?
Magic. There's just, 2 or 3 things I really need from somebody in order to translate visually. And that's like, okay, color scheme, obviously, I don't want to be stabbing in the dark. But how are you trying to make people feel? And what is the tone that you want? There's that tone and the feeling, like it's kind of like, what does your office space look like? Are you, very contemporary, modern and simple? Are you, kind of flamboyant with, zebra stripes or whatever? That's kind of the tone. And then it's the feeling when someone walks in. What do you want them to feel? Do you want them to feel, really comfortable? Are you there to educate them? What are you trying to do? And so for me, if I have like your color scheme and that information, I can generally, that would be enough for me. But of course it helps to have more details. And I think people get clear as when they fill out all that information.
Right.
So that's the beginning point for me. And then as I work through something with somebody, I try to say, okay, what, when they give me feedback, it's like, don't tell me necessarily that, you want to see a little different green there. Or can I use that font? It's almost better if you say it's not elegant enough, or it's too busy, or it's not friendly enough, or, I don't get this, because that I can steer it into that direction, that part of it. And then a process of them, I have exercises that they go through that they look at like, okay, well, I've chosen these words for my personality. And then, you kind of do like this kind of exploration on Pinterest and Shutterstock and some different, websites that I list, and, kind of explore what do those words mean? How do other people interpret those words?
Yeah.
What does that mean to the general public? Or what are some alternate ways that can be interpreted? And then, then there'll be like a tangent, say on the word strategy or the word, brilliance, or whatever you want to, convey. You can kind of go off on these tangents and maybe kind of go, okay, well, I never thought of it that way. Maybe that's one way that I can convey that, So that's kind of how I encourage my clients. And then, we have our initial, a couple steps of the process. And the first one is visual priority wireframe with no prettiness. It's like, okay, let's look at this and say, okay, well, what do we want people to see first? Where does everything fit? And then I go in and fill that in, because I don't want them to get distracted by like the prettiness. I want them to look at like the function of it first.
It's interesting you mentioned a wireframe, because I have a feeling that with the new world of like WordPress and things like that, where you basically, create an account and then you've already got a site.
Right.
People probably aren't doing any of that offline. Like, it's kind of like they're just going. How do you decide like what's the best layout for any given website?
That's based, on personality and message. And, if it's somebody who is like coaching or selling something intangible, there has to be like a really strong message up, front and center. If it's somebody who's selling a product, something really, I love, jewelry designers. Again, I think that's something that's front and center, so it's like kind of some things just call or be, just require like attention front and center, big slideshow, big image, whatever. And so, it's definitely based on content and goals of the website. And then I just kind of work on it from there. And I start with that wireframe because it's just so easy to, move pieces around. And I think that it kind of, again, my clients, it's maybe the first time they've kind of conceptualized it.
So one of the things that you talked about, because I looked through your questionnaire, was you asked about imagery. And I'm curious, again, it's kind of that translation part, because I think it's so tricky for people to get from like, this is me as a business. How do I know what imagery represents me? So how do you guide people to to think of things?
It's funny. Most of my clients just answer that, just they know. And I think it's because, they'll know that they like circles, or they know that they like, and I think that question is also for me to inject a little bit of their own personality into maybe something that has a bigger business vision. But for instance, if you like, circles, or you really are drawn to that or whatever, we can incorporate that into your background, or something that just kind of injects a little bit of your own aesthetic into, this bigger business vision. Thinking a little bit abstractly, is a good way to kind of differentiate yourself. I mean, one of my clients, for instance, she in her slideshow, she talks about not having the right words to say, and she's using a hand that's blowing, it's blowing, and it's like you automatically connect the two, but it's just like this beautiful image of just it's like somebody expressing themselves, but it's not literally somebody like sitting there like I don't know what to say. So you sort of make this kind of, it just gives you this just kind of little extra to think about, and then it makes it more memorable. So I think that literal is good, and also I think literal can be good, and I think, but that to me, everyone who comes to her site is like drawn in, and I think that that's one of the reasons why, is because she really took the time to find imagery that was very thought-provoking. At the same time, I think imagery that for instance, if you're selling something intangible and you use imagery that helps people understand what they might achieve, whether it's some kind of specific health or ability to do something that they couldn't do before, whatever, I think that kind of thinking in terms of results is another good place to start.
Yeah, like lifestyle, like you said earlier, it's about how is their lifestyle going to look, like literally. So is there any other final thoughts that you have that you think people really need to know out there in order to prevent design headaches?
Regrets.
And regrets, yeah.
Design regrets. I think that, if people just really, I think you have to choose who you're talking to. You have to really understand and know the person that you want to work with, because that's just, that right there, as a designer, I got to know who I'm targeting. And so I find that, really sitting with yourself and really, kind of coming clean about that is going to be, not trying to like appeal to everyone. I don't try to appeal to everyone. It took me a while to figure that out. So, and it's definitely, it's so counterintuitive, and you feel like, oh, I should do this or I should do that. And I think what we find is we always ultimately end up coming back to like what our initial, gut feeling on, who and what we should be doing. And we, like you said earlier on, where we try to, we try other things, or it maybe feels too easy, or it would be too fun to work with, a person or whatever. But yeah, just that, the clarity, it's one of the hardest pieces, but it's going to be the most, it's going to give you the best results. That for me, when I have a client who's really clear, really confident, she doesn't even have to be clear about visual. She's really clear about who she is and what she's doing. It just makes it so much easier, and it's just a joy to work on a project like that.